The morning sun had barely stretched its golden arms across the sky when Mama tied the last knot on Akena's iron box. It was old, passed down from his elder brother, but strong. Like everything in Mama's house, it had a story. This box carried Obina through 6 years of boarding school, she said, patting it like a faithful animal. Now it will carry you. Let it not return home empty. Akena, a lanky 14-year-old boy with curious eyes and a nervous grin, shifted on his feet. His mind wasn't on the box. It was on the school, Nkwashi College. The name alone had weight. Not because it was famous for winning competitions, or for being a government-funded unity school, but because of the stories. You go dey hear drum wey no get drummer, his cousin Adiz had whispered the night before, as wide like someone who had seen a masquerade remove its mask. Dem say one boy wey no greet senior vanish for toilet. Nkwashi no be school, another voice chimed in. No shrine wey wear uniform. But Mama ignored all that. She handed Akena a folded 5 naira note and a calabash of water. Drink this before you enter the school gate. It is from your grandmother's spring. It will give you eyes that see what is hidden. He didn't ask questions. Mama's eyes had a finality that ended all arguments. The road to Nkwashi was a long and winding one, stretching from the red earth village of Umopra to the green hills where the school stood like a king's palace. As the bus rumbled along, Akena sat beside the window, watching the trees blur past like memories. Around him, boys laughed, shouted, and shared chin-chin and groundnuts. Some were returning students. They wore faded uniforms with pride, swinging their belts like warriors returning from war. Others, like him, were freshers, first-timers, wide-eyed and silent. "Wetin be your name?" a boy beside him asked. "Akena." "First time." He nodded. The boy smiled, revealing teeth stained with color. "I be James. Make I tell you something, Nkwashi get eyes. E dey watch who you be." Before Akena could ask what that meant, the bus jerked to a stop. A rusted sign leaned forward as though to whisper. "Welcome to Nkwashi College. Knowledge is light. Tradition is law." Akena swallowed hard. The compound was massive, rows of grey hostel buildings, a dusty football field, and a statue of a man holding a talking drum. At the base of the statue were strange markings in chalk, half-washed by rain. Students hustled around like ants in a disturbed nest. Seniors in white shirts backed others. Bags were snatched. Freshers were pushed, laughed at, some even mocked for the shape of their heads. "Now who be this one wey carry box like coffin?" a tall boy jeered, slapping Akena's iron trunk. "I'm Akena," he replied, quietly. "I say drop that yacht, I'm Akena. For here, you be number 27. That's your fresher name." Akena's cheeks burned. But he remembered Mama's warning, don't talk too much the first week. Observe. Listen. So he bit his tongue. They were marched to the hostel called Hall of Echoes. The name alone made his belly twist. Its walls were grey, its corridors dark, and its door creaked like something alive. Inside, rows of bunk beds stood like prison cots. His was the top bunk under a broken fan. As he climbed, a note fell from the mattress above. "Do not look under the bed after midnight." "Yes." Akena's hand trembled. He slid the note into his pocket and looked around, but no one seemed to notice. The first night, he couldn't sleep. The fan clicked like a witch's tongue. Somewhere in the hallway, footsteps passed, too light to be human. A drumbeat rolled softly, deep and distant. Dum, dum, dum. Akena sat up, heart pounding. No one else stirred. Even James, now his bunkmate, snored lightly like a man under a spell. Then he saw it. At the window, beyond the dusty glass, stood a figure wearing a red cap and a white wrapper. Its eyes glowed faintly, like embers in old wood. It raised one hand and tapped the glass. Tap, tap, Tap. Akena couldn't scream. His voice froze in his throat like cold pap. The figure vanished into the night mist, leaving only a whisper that sounded like wind and warning. Do not break the rules. Morning came with the sound of a handbell and a senior's voice. Wake up, goats. Morning devotion. Akena sat up, soaked in sweat. Was it a dream? A trick? A joke from a senior? But as he reached for his slippers under the bed, he saw something that made his heart skip. A line of white chalk was drawn around his bed. Fresh. Clean. Powerful. And there, just beside the bunk leg, lay the same red feather worn by the figure in the window. The morning air in Huashi was sharp with dew and discipline. As the sun clawed its way through the grey clouds, Akena joined the single file line of sleepy boys shuffling toward the school chapel for morning devotion. His body was present, but his mind clung to the red feather and chalk circle by his bunk. Had anyone else seen it? James, his bunkmate, acted normal. He yawned loudly and whispered complaints about early mornings. Not every morning them they do devotion, he grumbled. Even witches no wake this early. Akena tried to laugh, but the memory of the tapping at the window still clung to his skin like sweat. Inside the chapel, the walls were cracked, the altar plain. A dusty wooden crucifix hung above, but beside it stood a carved talking drum, resting on a sacred stool wrapped in white cloth. It was old, older than the school itself, they said. And though it hadn't been played in decades, everyone feared it. That drum no be ordinary drum, James whispered. Them say if it sound by itself, person go die. Akena didn't reply. He stared at it the way villagers stare at a python lying still under a banana tree. Then came the booming voice of Senior Dunlody, the prefect with the chest of a soldier and the temper of a goat. Silence. Before we start, let's welcome the fresh fish. The senior students erupted in jeers and mocking applause. Some clapped like drummers at a funeral. Others bleated like goats. Akena and the rest of the new boys lowered their heads, a mix of shame and confusion painting their faces. Senior Dunlody grinned. Freshers, you are now in Huashi College, the land of bones and books. And here, we have rules. Break them, and you may not return home whole. The laughter that followed wasn't ordinary. It had teeth. After devotion, Akena and the other freshers were summoned to the assembly ground, a dry, cracked field behind the hostels where rules were taught not with books, but with belts. Stand straight, back Senior Lockman, a tall, dark-skinned senior with yellow tribal marks across his cheeks. This is the Hall of Echoes. And here, your mouth speaks only when permitted. Number 27, he called. Akena stepped forward. You brushed your teeth today? Yes, sir. You fetch water with your hands? No, sir. Then why does your bucket still have soap in it? Akena's eyes widened. I. Before he could finish, a dirty slipper slapped his back. Senior Lockman had flung it with the aim of a village hunter. No stammering here. We don't raise goats in this school. Laughter again. But beneath it, Akena could hear a faint sound, the low, rhythmic thump of a drum. Or was it his heartbeat? That evening, they were assigned duties. Akena's task was sweeping the back of the hostel, a stretch of bushy ground where no lights worked and no senior ever volunteered. You go sweep there alone, Senior Lockman said, handing him a broken broomstick. Don't talk to anything you hear. If you hear drumming, run. If you hear crying, ignore it. And if you see a girl in white, close your eyes. He laughed, but didn't blink. Akena nodded slowly, gripped the broomstick, and walked to the back of the Hall of Echoes. The area behind the hostel smelled of wet leaves, smoke, and something else, decay. Tall grass brushed his ankles, and a large twisted iroko tree stood in the middle, its roots like angry fingers in the soil. As he swept, a cold wind blew, though the night was warm. Then, drumming. Faint. Far. Fading. But real. Dumb, dumb, dumb. Ikenna froze. He looked around. Nothing. Just bushes and the silhouette of the tree. Then, laughter. Soft. Female. His head snapped toward the tree. A figure, a girl in white wrapper, barely visible, stood just beyond the tree trunk. He blinked. Gone. His hands trembled. His broom fell. The sound of anklet bells followed. Ikenna, a voice whispered. He ran. Back in the hostel, he didn't speak. He lay on his bed, eyes open, clutching the calabash Mama had given him. James noticed. What did happen? I saw something, Ikenna whispered. A girl. In white. Behind the hall. James sat up slowly. You sure? He nodded. James looked around, lowered his voice. You know say one girl died here some years back. Her name Nomphon. Them say seniors lock am inside pit toilet by mistake during ragging. Since then, people they see her during fresher season. Ikenna's breath caught. Why didn't anyone stop it? He asked. James shook his head. In Kwashi, silence is survival. You speak, you vanish. They sat in silence until the bell for lights out rang. That night, as the hostel darkened and snores filled the air, Ikenna heard it again. Tap. 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 The window. He didn't look. He couldn't. But when he woke at dawn, he found another note under his pillow. Do not sweep near the Iroko tree again. Mphon watches from there. It was signed, S. Who was S? How did they know? And why did the talking drum beat louder in his dreams each night? By the end of his first week in Kwashi College, Ikenna had learned 3 unspoken rules. 1. Never eat the meat in the refectory if you didn't see it killed. 2. Never ask questions about the whistling room in the East Wing. 3. Never, ever argue with a senior. Especially after lights out. That last rule was the one most freshers learned the hard way. It was Friday evening, the day of the dreaded general hostel inspection, when all freshers' lockers were opened and examined by the seniors. If your socks were smelly, your plate oily, or your foodstuff too rich, you paid for it, sometimes in humiliation, sometimes in pain. The prefect stormed the dormitory like tax collectors in a royal court. Senior Lockman was in front, his belt already off, slapping it against his palm like it owed him money. Number 15, he roared. A chubby boy stepped forward. Why your locker smell like wet chicken? No, your mama teach you hygiene. Before the boy could answer, the seniors upturned his box. Gary spilled. Powder exploded. Slippers flew like war charms. Then it was Ikenna's turn. Number 27. Senior Dunlody called. Open your locker. Ikenna stepped forward. He opened the rusty locker door, revealing his carefully folded uniforms, wrapped provisions, and Mama's small clay pot of camphor and charcoal, meant to chase evil dreams. Senior Lockman pulled it out. Wetin be this? A dream protector, Ikenna answered, softly. Lockman smacked. Dream protector. For here. The seniors laughed. One of them grabbed a spoonful of Ikenna's powdered milk and tossed it in his face. The others followed with biscuits, ground nuts, even raw uncooked rice. Ikenna stood still, chest heaving, but not moving. Silence is survival. Then it happened. One of them, Senior Corid, a notorious troublemaker with eyes like burnt coals, brought out Ikenna's notebook and flipped through the pages. Inside were Ikenna's personal poems and thoughts about home, fear, and the girl in white. Listen to this, oh! Corid shouted mockingly. Her eyes were like rivers of sorrow. She stood where the spirits burrow, oh! See Shakespeare, oh! The dormitory roared with laughter. Ikenna clenched his fist. His ears burned. But still, he said nothing. Until Corey did the unthinkable. He tore the notebook. Page after page, he shredded it into bits like yam leaves in a storm. His words were gone. His heart ripped open. Akena moved. Before he could think, he snatched the belt from Luckman's hand and shoved Corrid. The room went silent. Seniors stared. Juniors froze. For a moment, even the shadows on the wall held their breath. You get mind. Luckman hissed. You touch Senior. Fonhwashi. Akena's breath was fast. Loud. Dangerous. Corrid's lips curled into a grin. Tonight, you go learn say madness get level. That night, after lights out, they came for him. 3 shadows by his bed. A 4th at the door. James tried to protest, but a warning look silenced him. They took Akena barefoot, blindfolded, to a small, dusty storeroom near the kitchen. Inside, they beat him. With belts. With broomsticks. With words sharper than razors. You think you're a hero. You think you can write poems and fight us. This is Mwashi. You either bend, or you break. At some point, blood mixed with sweat on Akena's lips. But his voice didn't cry. His eyes didn't close. Somewhere inside him, something old, something ancient, was waking up. And then, the drumming began. Dum, dum, dum. The seniors paused. Who they play drum? One of them asked. But there was no answer. Only the drumming. Louder now. Closer. Dum. 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 The door rattled. The windows shook. The lights flickered. Corrid's hand trembled. Luckman cursed under his breath. Then the chalk writing appeared on the wall. Not drawn. Not painted. Appeared. A single sentence. Fon remembers. The seniors fled. They left Akena bleeding and alone in the storeroom. But as he opened his swollen eyes, he saw her again. The girl in white. Only this time, she was clearer. Her eyes were sorrowful. Her skin pale. Her feet hovered slightly above the ground. She reached out her hand, not to harm, but to comfort. You are not alone, she whispered. But speak the truth, and Kwashi will turn against you. She disappeared with the wind. The next morning, Akena was discovered by a kitchen staff sweeping early. He was taken to the sickbay, where he lied, like all others before him. I fell. Nobody asked more. But James knew the truth. And as he passed him oranges under the bed sheets, he whispered. We need to find out who S is. That person knows what's happening. Maybe even why Mfon can't rest. Akena nodded slowly. He was no longer afraid of the seniors. He was afraid of what they were hiding. It rained the next day. A steady, whispering rain that fell like secrets from the sky. Akena sat in the sickbay, watching droplets crawl down the cracked windowpane. The pain from the beatings had dulled, replaced now by a slow-burning ache in his ribs and a heaviness in his thoughts. But even more than the bruises, it was the memory of her, the girl in white, and the chalk-written words that haunted him. Fon remembers. Who was she truly? And why had she appeared to him, twice now? He turned to look at the empty bed beside his. It had been unoccupied when he arrived. Now, a boy sat on it. He looked a year or two older, dressed in faded uniform, and held a hand-carved slingshot. He was staring at Akena. You're the boy from Hall of Echoes, right? The stranger said. Akena nodded slowly. Yes. You're the one who saw her, the boy continued. The girl in white. Fon. Akena sat upright. How do you know that? The boy smiled faintly, not cruelly, but with a strange sadness. Because I saw her too. 3 years ago. His name was Chidi. Or so he said. He spoke softly, like someone who didn't want to disturb the air. According to him, he had once been a student in Huashi, but after something happened, his name was wiped from the books, and his face slowly forgotten by most. I stay in the West Wing now, he explained. The site they say is abandoned. But they sealed it, Ikena whispered. That place is locked. Chidi leaned in, his eyes bright like cola soaked in rainwater. Locked by hand. Not by spirit. Ikena shivered. They locked it after Mfon died, Chidi continued. That's where it happened. The night of the ragging trials. They stuffed her inside a water tank as punishment. She couldn't breathe. When they opened it the next morning, she was already gone. Ikena's stomach twisted. Why would they do that? Because she refused to kneel for a senior. She was the first girl who ever fought back. Strong. Proud. Too proud. The school didn't like her. The spirits didn't either. Chidi paused, then looked out the window. But she didn't leave. You've seen her. She watches. Waits. For what? Ikena asked. For the one who will speak when others stay silent. Ikena fell quiet. The air between them thickened. Why are you helping me? He asked. Chidi turned back to him. Because I also stayed silent when it mattered. And silence is a wound that never heals. That night, Ikena returned to Hall of Echoes. The boys barely looked at him. James whispered that Senior Corrid had been silent since the storeroom incident. His laughter was gone. His swagger too. He dey behave like person we don't see ghost, James said. Him no even beat Junior today. As Ikena climbed into his bunk, he found a new note beneath his pillow. She's waiting near the whispering wall. Midnight. Come alone. S. At midnight, the school was a kingdom of silence. Even the crickets dared not sing. Ikena tiptoed past the hall warden's quarters, barefoot, heart racing like a goat escaping a sacrifice. The whispering wall was a mossy, curved wall behind the east wing, once the girls' hostel, now condemned. No one went there. Except tonight. He arrived to find fog calling around the ground. The wall loomed like a sleeping god. Hello, he whispered. The wind sighed in reply. Then a voice spoke, not from behind him, not in front, but inside the wall. You came. It wasn't fun. It wasn't Chidi. It was a girl's voice, but clearer. Alive. From the mist stepped a girl, about his age, wearing a blue wrapper and old sandals. Her hair was woven into long, neat braids, but her face held a sorrow far beyond her years. You're not afraid, she said. I am, Ikena replied honestly. But I'm more afraid of staying silent. She nodded. I'm sad. My sister was Mfon. The story unraveled like a tightly wrapped scroll. Mfon had been her only sibling. After her death, Soda's family tried to take the matter to the school authorities. But everything was buried. The school denied responsibility. The prefects threatened them. Eventually, Soda's parents moved away. But she couldn't forget. I came back, Sod said. I faked my records and got admitted again. To find out the truth. Why send me notes? Ikena asked. Because you're different. You saw her. You didn't run. And you stood up to them. That caught her attention. Ikena looked down. I'm just trying to survive. No, she said. You're meant to awaken the truth. And the drum. He looked up sharply. The talking drum. Sod nodded. It hasn't been sounded in 20 years. But they say when injustice festers, and a truth bearer rises, the drum will call for justice itself. Ikena took a step back. You want me to beat the drum? Soda's voice became a whisper. When the time comes, it will beat itself. She turned to leave. Wait, he called. What if I fail? She paused. Then fun may never rest. And Kwashi will continue to rot beneath its silence. As she disappeared into the night mist, Akena felt it again, that low, distant beat. Dum, dum, dum. The talking drum had heard. And it was waking. The day of the Founders' Festival arrived with unusual excitement. Boys swept every corner of the compound. Hostels were decorated with torn ribbons and painted slogans like "Knowledge is light" and "Unity through discipline." The air buzzed with drums, smell of fried akara from the dining hall, and the sharp click of sandals as teachers strutted with pride. Even the strictest prefect smiled. For one day, Nkwashi College pretended it was not haunted by silence. But not everyone was celebrating. Akena, still aching from the bruises of the week before, moved through the crowd with James, his eyes scanning everything: the podium, the flags, the statue of the talking drum. His thoughts stayed on the last night. On Sword. On Chidi. On Mfon. Tonight not the night, James said, licking a piece of dry chin-chin. The masquerade of Ekwensu go dance. Me, I go stay inside my box. I no day for any spiritual nonsense. Akena forced a weak smile, but he couldn't deny it, he was scared too. The masquerade of Ekwensu was the centerpiece of the Founders' Night. According to legend, the first principal of Nkwashi was a diviner who built a school on ancient sacred land, Ekwensu's ground, a place where spirits once gathered to test mortals. The masquerade was said to be more than a costume. It chose its wearer. And at midnight, it walked the school alone. No one knew who wore it. Or whether it was even human anymore. After the festival fanfare ended, after the march past, poetry recitations, and a boring speech by the Commissioner for Education, the students were sent back to their hostels. But Akena stayed awake. So did James. So, what exactly are we looking for? James asked, reluctantly slipping on his socks. Proof, Akena said. Chidi said the masquerade isn't a school tradition. It's a binding ritual. To silence Mfon's story, than others like her. You sure say Chidi they alive? Akena hesitated. I don't know. That silence said everything. At 11:47 p.m., they snuck out of Hall of Echoes, cutting through the back trail by the yam store. James carried a flashlight wrapped in red cloth to reduce the glow. Akena carried nothing but a small amulet Mama had placed in his iron box, something she had blessed for dangerous nights. They reached the assembly ground. It was empty. Except for the drum beats. Slow. Powerful. Ancient. Dum. 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 From the fog came the sound of rattles. Then chanting. Then it appeared. The masquerade. Its body was cloaked in red and black raffia. Its face hidden behind a carved wooden mask with zigzag eyes and a bleeding mouth. It didn't walk, it glided. Two boys trailed behind it, playing twin flutes. Behind them came Senior Lockman and Senior Dunlody, both wearing white wrappers and no shirts. What are they doing? James whispered. I don't know, Akena said. But they are not alone. Because from the edge of the assembly ground, Chidi stepped forward. But the flutist didn't flinch. They saw him. Which meant he was real. Chidi raised a long staff wrapped in white cloth and stepped into the circle the masquerade had danced into. You perform this ritual year after year, he shouted, to bind the truth. You offer silence in place of justice. But the land remembers. Mfon remembers. Dunlody snarled. Chidi, you don't belong here. You're not even on the school register. I belong, Chidi said. Because her blood touched me. The drum beat stopped. The masquerade froze. Then, it turned to face Chidi. No, Akena whispered. It's not a person. The mask tilted slightly. Chidi raised the staff and struck the earth 3 times. Boom. 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 The wind roared. The mask split down the middle. And from inside came Fawn. But not as a ghost. As a vision. A projection. A memory carved into spirit. She spoke in a voice both distant and clear. You buried me under laughter. But truth does not stay dead. Now, one among you has awakened the drum. The talking drum by the chapel statue began to shake. Unplayed. But alive. Then came a blinding flash. And silence. Akena woke up in his bed. Sweat-drenched. James beside him. It was morning. The school bell was ringing. But something had changed. There was no Founders Festival banner. No leftover food. No trace of midnight rituals. Was it a dream? James asked. Akena said nothing. Until he opened his locker. Inside was the masquerade mask, broken in 2. And a new note. She has chosen you now. The drum must speak. For the rest of that week, nothing felt real. Not the morning assemblies, not the tasteless food, not even the way Senior Lockman passed Akena without a single taunt. The school moved as if last night had never happened, as if the masquerade never danced, Mfon never spoke, and Chidi never existed. But the mask in Akena's locker was real. So was the note. So was the drumbeat that haunted his dreams every night. And something else had changed. The statue of the talking drum was missing. Vanished. Overnight. Where it once stood in front of the chapel, there was now only cracked cement and a faint ring of chalk around the base. James confirmed it too. Guy, this school they do juju. I swear. Not only us they notice these things. Akena didn't answer. He was staring at the east wing, the part of the school students avoided like a cursed shrine. The windows were boarded, doors sealed with rusty chains, and weeds grew around it like nature trying to bury the past. But that morning, one of the windows was open. Just slightly. But enough. Salt said the truth is hidden there, Akena muttered. That's where it all started. You want make we enter East Wing? James blinked. Guy, I know day for horror movie. You don't have to come, Akena said. James sighed. Not so people they take dive for storybook. That night, while the others snored through the generator's final hum, Akena slipped out with nothing but a small torchlight and the mask wrapped in a towel. To his surprise, James was waiting outside. Before you open your mouth, no talk, he said. I no get strong mind like you, but I no fit let you walker enter spirit house alone. I go just day your backup. They made their way to the east wing. The chains on the front door were indeed rusted. One good twist and they snapped with a groan. The door creaked open into pure darkness. Their torch beams lit up dusty hallways, cobwebs thick like netting, and torn posters still hanging from years ago, Speech Day 2001, Excellence in Character. The walls were covered in graffiti, strange symbols, and faded warnings like, do not enter after midnight, and, the walls have ERS. They reached a locked door at the far end marked, Archives, staff only. James, shine the light here, Akena said. He pressed the mask against the door. Nothing. Then he placed his palm on the wood. A hum vibrated through it. The door clicked open. James took 2 steps back. Now me and you they here, but now you spirit they follow. Inside was a small room with a broken filing cabinet, a desk covered in dust, and a shelf full of decayed registers. Akena opened the first book, Admissions 2019. Page after page listed names of former students. Until he reached it. Mfoni Okari, JSS 1A, admitted, 2019, status, transferred. He flipped to disciplinary records. No mention. Not even a report of punishment. But then, he found something taped under the drawer. A cassette tape labeled, Ragging Incident, November 17, 2019. James's mouth dropped open. Waiting cassette they do for 2025 school. They looked around. On a shelf in the corner sat an old battery-powered recorder. Akena pressed play. A faint hiss filled the air. Then voices. Lock the door. She no gree kneel. Make we show her level. Put her inside the tank. Just more, make she cool down. Then a girl's voice. You people are mad. If anything happens to me. Muffled sounds. Water splashing. A scream. Then silence. James staggered back. Jesus. This thing real. Them kill her. For real. Akena's hands trembled. His chest felt like a calabash about to burst. We have to take this to someone, he said. To who? James snapped. You go carry go principal. Them go say no fake. Them go say no prank. This school get demons But if we don't, she won't rest. Mfon won't rest. As they argued, the torchlight flickered, and died. They stood in pitch blackness. Then came the whispers. At first, low. Then louder. From the walls. Tell them. Free her. Let the drum speak. The walls began to bleed chalk symbols, just like the ones around the missing statue. The air turned cold. Heavy. Then a voice spoke behind them. Not a whisper. Not a threat. But a plea. Help me. They turned. There stood Mfon. But this time, her image was different, less ghostly. Less angry. Her eyes held tears. Her voice shook like the wind through palm trees. Akena, she said. You found what they buried. But finding is not enough. It must be spoken. Spoken where? He asked. In front of the whole school. At the foot of the drum. Then I'll be free. Then the others can rest. Suddenly, footsteps echoed outside the door. Flashlights. Voices. SSSHHH. James hissed. Then a shout. Who's there? Seniors. The door burst open. A beam of light struck Akena's face. In his hands, the cassette tape. The mask beside him. Senior Dunloddy's voice thundered. Catch them. The next morning, the school compound was quiet. Too quiet. Not the quiet of morning sleep, but the heavy, unnatural quiet of something hidden, something buried and dangerous. Akena and James sat on the bare floor of a small, windowless room beneath the dining hall. A leaking ceiling dripped into a rusted bucket in the corner. Their wrists were tied with twine. Their legs ached from hours of squatting. It wasn't just detention. This was Judgment Hall. Them won't kill us, James muttered, voice dry. No, this kind place them use do a bunch sacrifice. Akena didn't answer. His mind was still echoing with the last words he'd heard before the seniors dragged them out of the east wing. Catch them. They had been beaten. Not just slapped or kicked, but beaten with belts, sticks, and the flat side of sandals. All for breaking into a part of the school that had been spiritually sealed. All for finding the truth. Now they were about to face the bowl. The bowl wasn't in the school rulebook. It wasn't known to teachers or mentioned during orientation. It was an ancient punishment, whispered about only in hushed tones during hostel lights out, used when students committed a crime not just against school order, but against tradition. James had heard of it once. They say the bowl came from Ogbunike Shrine, he had whispered. Used to test thieves and liars. If you're innocent, you go day fine. But if you're guilty, the bowl will show your shame. Akena shivered. Because he knew the truth. They were not guilty. But guilt, in Huashi, was not decided by facts, it was decided by fear. By mid-morning, they were dragged out into the assembly ground. The rest of the students were forced to sit and watch. Prefects flanked the front rows, holding canes. Teachers stood far behind, pretending to be uninvolved. In the center of the circle stood the black bowl, a wide, deep clay basin covered with ash and nzu, white chalk, with a single calabash of black liquid floating in the center. Senior Dunlody raised his voice like a priest at a funeral. Today, these two boys are brought before Mwashi, not for stealing food or failing exams, but for breaking sacred seals, entering forbidden grounds, and attempting to resurrect the curse of Mfon. The crowd gasped. The name, Mfon, was not to be said aloud. But he had said it. Let the board decide, another senior shouted. Dunlody nodded. Step forward, number 27. Ikena's legs were shaking, but he walked. The bowl was placed in front of him. The black liquid inside shimmered with a strange oily light. It smelled of herbs, fire, and something rotten. Dunlody pointed at it. Drink. Ikena stared. What is it? Truth water, Dunlody sneered. If you lie, it burns. If you're innocent, you stay standing. Ikena closed his eyes. In his mind, he saw Mfon. Not the angry ghost, but the girl with braids. Her voice like a river. Let the drum speak. He lifted the calabash and drank. It was bitter. Bitterer than any medicine Mama had ever forced down his throat. It scorched his tongue, burned down his throat. He staggered. Laughter rippled through the students. Lie. He's guilty. Shame go kill him. But Ikena didn't fall. Instead, his lips parted, and he spoke. All of you, he said, his voice rising like thunder. You saw what they did to Mfon. You knew what happened. They drowned her in that tank. And none of you said a word. Silence fell. Then murmurs. Seniors looked at each other. Dunlody's face turned dark. Enough. But Ikena was not done. I saw the records. I heard the tape. The school lied. The staff covered it. And the drum, he pointed toward the chapel, the drum remembers. At that moment, a gust of wind tore across the assembly ground. Students screamed. The drum at the chapel's front door began to throb. Dum, dum, dum. Without hands. Without touch. The talking drum was speaking. Then, she appeared. Phone. This time, everyone saw her. She stood on the roof of the chapel, dressed in her school uniform, eyes burning like the morning sun. She speaks, her voice echoed. At last. The sky turned grey. Thunder cracked above. Senior Lockman screamed. Make it stop. It's happening again. He tried to run, but slipped and fell. Seniors scattered. Staff ran for shelter. And in the confusion, the black bowl shattered, its black water hissing into the ground like hot oil on cold metal. After the drum spoke and Mfon appeared, nothing in Washi remained the same. For the first time in the school's long, hidden history, fear changed direction. No longer did it only live in the minds of juniors. It now perched on the shoulders of seniors and echoed in the whispers of teachers who once believed themselves untouchable. Senior Lockman. Gone. Word spread that he'd left in the middle of the night, dragging his box through the bush path behind the school, muttering prayers and swatting at invisible flies. Senior Dunlody. Suspended indefinitely for a gross misconduct. But no one said Mfon's name again. Not out loud. The principal. Replaced. But the new one, Principal Ojigo, wasn't like the last. He didn't smile. He didn't shout. He simply arrived, sat in the office with a briefcase carved with Nsibidi symbols, and watched everyone as if he could see through walls. Even the staff avoided his gaze. In the hostel, Akena became something strange, respected. He wasn't a hero. No one cheered for him. But seniors walked more carefully around him. Juniors whispered his name like a charm. Akena the drum whisperer. Spirit boy. Masquerade friend. But to him, it meant nothing. Because Mfon still hadn't appeared again. And the real enemy hadn't shown itself. One evening, while washing socks at the back of the refectory, James nudged Akena's elbow. "Should they call you?" Akena looked up. Sword. She stood behind the mango tree, her eyes scanning the compound like a haunted animal. He followed her quickly, heart pounding. She led him into the abandoned girls' quarters, now just a shell of broken desks and cobwebs. "We are forming something," she said. "A group. To protect juniors. To expose lies. To stop this culture of silence." "A resistance?" he asked. She nodded. "We call it Ikunu. The line of life." "Who else is in?" "Some girls from senior block. A few juniors. And someone you already know." Chidi stepped out from the shadows. He looked stronger now. Clearer. Less like a fading spirit, more like someone who had decided to stay behind on purpose. "I'm not alive like you," he said to Akena, "but I'm not gone either. As long as the school remembers what happened, I remain." Akena nodded, slowly. "What do you need from me?" "You'll lead," Sot said. He blinked. "Me? You're the one who broke the drum's silence. You've seen both sides. They trust you. They fear you. You're the bridge." Akena felt his chest tighten. He was just a boy from Enugu, whose mother packed him dried ogba and tied a charm to his waist. He hadn't asked for this. But he knew something now. Some stories choose their tellers. The next few weeks passed in shadow and whispers. Ikundu grew. Members met under mango trees. Passed notes during prep. Held silent meetings in abandoned toilet stalls and beneath chapel pews. They documented every injustice. Juniors who were forced to scrub the gutter with toothbrushes. Girls whose provisions were stolen every Saturday. A boy who fainted after flogging, but was told to man up. Each case was written down in a hidden book, bound in red cloth. But the real goal wasn't just gathering stories. It was to prepare for Founders Week, where, according to Sword, a deeper, darker ritual was coming. The masquerade wasn't just performance, she said one night, her voice hushed. It was a cover. A binding spell. For what? James asked. Chidi answered, for something the school buried. A mistake that became a spirit. A hunger. He looked at Akena. It's still asleep. But it's stirring. That night, Akena dreamed. He stood in the chapel. Alone. Except for the drum. But it wasn't whole anymore. It had cracked. Smoke seeped from it. Whispers leaked through the air. A shadow moved behind him. He turned. And saw a figure with no face, wearing a crown of bones and a uniform soaked in blood. Then a whisper. You woke the drum. Now you must feed it. He jolted awake. Sweating. Shaking. James, sleeping beside him, didn't stir. But a new note lay on his chest. Not from Sword. Not from Fon. It read. The line has been drawn. Choose carefully. Not all drums call for justice. Some call for blood. The one beneath. The day after Akena received the note, the rain returned. Not the gentle drizzle that softened young beds in the village, not the kind that sent children dancing in underwear. This was the type of rain that came when something was wrong with the land. Lightning split the sky. The clouds hung low like bruises. And the walls of Nkwashi College seemed to hum with a sound no one else could hear. but Ikena heard it. He heard it in the clatter of chalk on blackboard, in the groan of the school gate, in the beat of his own heart. The drum was cracking. During prep that evening, he met with Sod, James, and Chidi beneath the laundry line behind the refectory. The moon was thin, weak, like a frightened eye. They crouched beneath a tattered wrapper, whispering. "I think something is coming," Ikena said. "Something we didn't expect." "I know," Chidi replied. "You've awakened the drum. But drums have many voices." Sod leaned forward. "I read the oldest record book. The school was built not just on sacred land, it was built to seal something. A spirit. One that feeds on pain. A spirit." James swallowed. "Like phone?" Chidi shook his head. "No. Not like Mfon. Older. Deeper. Mfon's spirit stayed behind because of injustice. But this one was summoned." They all turned to him. "There's a reason every student in Washi learns to stay silent. It's not just senior fear. It's a spiritual hush. A curse woven into tradition." Sod added, "The whispering walls. The broken drum. The bow. They want punishment systems. They were pieces of a prison." Ikena frowned. "Then what's the final lock?" Chidi met his gaze. "You." That night, while the school slept and rain rattled the roof like cursed cowries, Ikena was woken by the sound of digging. Not near. Beneath. He slipped out of bed, heart thudding. In the corridor, the lights flickered. Down the hall, he saw a boy standing still. Not moving. Not breathing. It was a Buka, a JSS2 boy who went missing 2 days earlier. "Ikena," the boy croaked. "It's awake." Then his eyes rolled back. And he collapsed. James ran from the other end of the hall. "You heard it too," he panted. "The sound." They weren't alone. From other hostels, students emerged, some trembling, some whispering, some weeping. The school was waking. Or, something under the school was. The Ikundu leaders gathered in the old chapel, Sod, Chidi, James, Ikena, and 6 others. "The school has a basement," Sod said. "A hidden chamber. Only staff have access. Chidi showed me the blueprints last week." James shook his head. "Blueprint? This not secret cult shrine, not just school. Oh. We have to go down there," Ikena said. "We started this. We finish it." "What if it's already out?" someone asked. Chidi said nothing. Just stared at the floor. Until he finally said, "There's a name for it. In old Nsaka stories. The Nduola, the spirit beneath the ground. It was summoned by a dying priest to devour corruption. But it turned on its summoners." Sod whispered, "It eats memory. It eats voice." That was the moment they all understood. Why teachers forgot students. Why prefects turned wicked. Why no one remembered Mfon until the drum called her name. The one beneath was feeding. And now, it was hungry again. They moved at midnight. Ikena led the way, the cracked drumstick in his hand like a staff. The key came from Chidi, a charm he had hidden in the abandoned laboratory. It shimmered like fireflies when it touched the locked basement door near the library. With a click, it opened. Stairs led down, narrow, damp, whispering. They descended into earth, carrying lanterns and prayers. At the bottom was a chamber. Round. Walls marked with ancient Igbo symbols. Bones. Broken uniforms. Melted candles. And in the center, the drum. Not the talking drum outside the chapel. A second one. Larger. Darker. Covered in dried blood. It pulsed like a heart. As they entered, it boomed. Dum. Dumb. Dumb. The lights went out. When they came back on, Chidi was gone. In his place, a figure. Tall. Faceless. Wearing the broken masquerade crown. A voice deeper than thunder echoed from it. You woke the drum. Now feed the silence. Students screamed. The lights exploded. The drum split. Darkness swallowed the room. And then, only Akena remained standing. In the dark, Mfon's voice came. Akena. You have one chance. Beat the drum. Beat it not with anger. Not with revenge. But with truth. His hands found the stick. He lifted it. And struck. Boom. He saw Mfon, smiling. Boom. He saw Chidi, fading with peace in his eyes. Boom. He saw the seniors weeping. The teachers ashamed. The curse breaking. The spirit shrieked. The chamber shook. And then, silence. When Akena awoke, he was outside the chapel. So was James. So was Sod. And so were 20 students, some from different years, some who were believed lost. The sky was calm. The school was still. And the real drum, the one in front of the chapel, stood tall again. Oh. Untouched. But different. The crack was gone. And in its place, a new inscription. Let the children speak. Morning broke gently, as though the earth itself knew something sacred had ended in the night. For the first time since he entered Nkwashi College, Akena did not wake in fear. There was no senior's belt slapping against bunkwood. No prefect yelling over burnt beans. No chants echoing from behind the chapel. Just silence and peace. He sat up slowly in the dormitory, as adjusting to the golden light filtering through the louvered windows. James stirred on the bunk below. You dey awake? Yes, Akena whispered. James sat up too. Did it happen? Akena nodded. No be dream. No. They sat for a long moment in silence, listening to the morning as though it was something fragile that could be broken. Then came the bell. But not the metal clanging of punishment. This bell was deep. Rhythmic. Boom, boom, boom. The drum. The talking drum. It was beating itself. Calling the school. Calling for truth. Calling for justice. By 10 a.m., every student, every teacher, every staff member had gathered at the assembly ground. Principal Ojigo stood at the front, his once blank face now pale. Behind him were members of the school board, some holding briefcases, others clutching charms or crosses. The drum stood tall beside them. Oh! Glowing. Vibrating. No one spoke. Until Akena stepped forward. He did not ask for permission. He did not bow. He stood in the center of the gathering, dust on his slippers, his uniform still damp from the underground chamber, and raised a piece of torn notebook paper. He spoke. I stand here not as a prefect. Not as a junior. Not even as someone who knows everything. I stand as someone who remembers. The crowd was still. We remember Mfon Okri. A student. A sister. A fighter. She said no to cruelty, and for that, she was silenced. A murmur passed through the crowd. We remember those who disappeared. Those whose names were erased. We remember the lies written in chalk. We remember what they did to us, and we will not forget again. He raised the paper. Here is what happened. Here are the tapes. The names. The punishments. The truth. All of it. He looked at the principal. I'm not here to accuse. I'm here to free. Silence. Then, a single clap. Then 2. Then 20. Then the whole school stood and clapped, the sound echoing like gunfire into the sky. The drum boomed once. And fell silent. Not broken. Not cursed. Just at peace. 1 week later, Nkoshi announced a full investigation into past abuses. Prefect privileges were restructured. Ikenna was offered a position on the new student council. He declined. A new rule was added to the school's charter. No child shall be silenced. On the last Friday before term break, Ikenna stood by the drum, watching the sun set over the field where Mfon had once run laps for pee. Sod walked up beside him. She's free now. You know that, right? Ikenna nodded. I felt her leave. And Chidi? Ikenna smiled faintly. He left too. The moment they started telling the truth. They stood in silence. Then James ran up, waving a sheet of paper. Them one interview you owe. No press people. Say them hear of the boy who made the school speak. Ikenna chuckled. Let them come. I have stories to tell. He turned back to the drum. And for one last time, he beat it. Boom. Not to wake spirits. Not to summon justice. But to say goodbye.